And welcome back. So I was on Twitter recently. Don't you judge me.
Don't you have any respect for yourself?
And there was a post asking for 4 horror movies that you find are underappreciated, underrated, need more love, or are not mentioned enough. I posted mine, but I thought this would be a good topic for a video. Now before we start, since this is Smash Cinema, I need to have a beverage. So today, I'm going to be sipping on a Pale from the Crypt, and this is coming from Liquid Gravity Brewing Co. out of San Luis Obispo, California. This is a West Coast style IPA coming in at 5.5% ABV. Now, in full transparency, I have had this before, and I enjoyed it enough, but the real star is the beautiful Jack Davis artwork that's straight from the Tales from the Crypt EC comic series. I'll be honest, it's why I bought the beer to begin with. Thankfully, it's tasty too. As you can tell, I become quite good at opening beer cans. Alright, well, my lap is all wet, and that for reasons that I would prefer. Alright, let's do this for real. Yeah, it's pretty drinkable. I like it. Now, I won't be covering films that are, like, divisive and whatnot, such as Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, as it does already have an ever-growing cult following. No, I'm referring to the flicks you may never heard of, the ones that are usually passed on from person to person rather than are talked about ad nauseum on the interwebs. And for some unplanned reason, they all start with the letter F. That wasn't planned. So here are my top 5 picks for underappreciated horror films that could use some sweet, sweet love. To start, we've got Freaked from 1993. Freaked is a horror comedy directed by Tom Stern and Alex Winter. Yes, Bill S. Preston Esquire himself. It revolves around struggling child star Ricky Coogan, who is trying to hang on to any fame relevancy he can. He agrees to travel to Santa Flan, named for the patron saint of creamy desserts, to promote a controversial fertilizer called Zygote 24. He encounters a freak show in the middle of BFE run by Randy Quaid, where Ricky and his 2 friends are themselves transformed into hideous, disgusting freaks. They find themselves trapped along with a slew of other freaks, including Cowboy, the Bearded Lady, and Sockhead, and must find a way to freedom and to undo their transformation, if they can. Now, you likely saw this on Starz or HBO on loop back in the mid-90s after premiering in only 2 theaters in October of 1993. Freaked is a big, silly romp from beginning to end with gags flying at you at all times. The plot is paper thin, but the gags and performances by actors like William Sadler, Mr. T, and Keanu Reeves in an uncredited role as Ortiz the Dog Boy make this a real treat. It also includes plenty of zany, silly humor mixed with all the goopy, gloppy, messy creature effects you could want. Let's just say if you grew up in the 80s with toys like the Mad Scientist playsets, Mad Balls, and Rude Ralph, and have a craving for gross out humor, this is the flick for you. The real star of the movie are the practical creature effects by Tony Gardner, Steve Johnson, and Screaming Mad George, which are amazing and still hold up to this day. The DVD and Blu-ray releases from Anchor Bay are out of print, but can be purchased on the secondary market. As of this filming, Freaked is not available on any streaming platform that I could find, but I'm sure if you do a little bit of digging, you might be able to find somewhere where you might watch it. Maybe check this title search bar above my head. Maybe. Next is The Frighteners, directed by pre-Lord of the Rings Peter Jackson, coming off his critically acclaimed and also underappreciated Heavenly Creatures. Even though Peter Jackson is no stranger to the horror genre of the classics like Brain Dead, aka Dead Alive in the States, and Bad Taste, this would be his first foray into Hollywood. Michael J. Fox stars as Frank Bannister, who finds that he can communicate with the dead following an accident that claimed his wife. While he uses the gift as a way to con people by haunting their houses and busting the ghosts, he becomes the only man who can stop a series of murders and strange occurrences in their small town. Something about the murders also feels familiar. Included in the cast are some mainstays of the horror genre, including Dee Wallace, Jeffrey Combs, and John Astin, who played the original Gomez Addams in The Addams Family. The film takes place in a small American town, but was filmed entirely in New Zealand with special effects by Weta Studios. The effects can be dated at times, but are still charming and fitting with the rest of the film's tone and look. The Frighteners is a mixture of comedy, horror, and mystery as you follow along with Frank to determine the cause of these murders and the lengths he's willing to go to stop it. The film unfortunately didn't perform well in its summer release, as it opened in 5th place behind Independence Day, Phenomenon, Courage Under Fire, and The Nutty Professor. The film would find some love after it was released on home video, but I still feel nobody is talking about this movie. And they really should. Fun fact, The Frighters was originally intended to be released as a Tales from the Crypt feature, but producer Robert Zemeckis liked the script too much and wanted it released on its own. Can you imagine a wraparound for this movie featuring the Crypt Keeper? You can stream Frighters on just about any pay service or check out the gorgeous new 4K Ultimate Edition from Turbine Media, which includes newly remastered theatrical and director's cut of the film, along with so much extra goodness. The set is in German, so have an interpreter handy. But it's really awesome. Alright, as we're reaching the hump of this list, do something a little special here. You remember this stuff? I do. I hated it, but we'll do a little shot-a-rooski for our boys Cult Moo because they introduced me to this wonderful elixir. Slancha. That has not got better. Yeah, fuck it, I need to chase that. Up next we have Frailty, directed by and starring the late, great Bill Paxton, along with Matthew McConaughey and Powers Booth, all actors who hail from Texas, where the movie takes place. Matthew McConaughey plays a mysterious stranger who walks into an FBI office late at night, claiming to have information and possible ties to the God's Hand Killer, and will only provide the information to the lead investigator, played by Powers Booth. Through a series of flashbacks, we are introduced to his father, who believes he is on a mission from God to destroy demons that are hiding within human hosts. We watch as the young boy and his brother experience their father's supposed madness as he destroys demons within their hometown. This is a very low-budget film at an estimated $11 million, but you can see that this was definitely a passion project for Bill Paxton, as well as everyone involved. The performances are top-notch, and the feeling of tension and horror throughout is very gripping. There isn't a lot of gore to speak of, but the tone is enough to please any horror fan. I can't say that I've seen McConaughey in a performance like this, and I have to say it's one of my favorites of his. For his character, you can see the toll that his life experiences have had on him, growing up with a serial killer for a father. What Paxton puts his sons through to really let it sink in that he's destroying demons and not humans can be downright frightening at times. Yeah. He truly believes that he's doing the Lord's work, and only half of the family appears to be on board with his mission. There is a feeling of pure dread as we watch the eldest son, Fenton, witness his father proceed with his mission while also trying to indoctrinate both he and his brother. I love how the picture plays out the series of events and makes the audience really question the motives and if they're truly divine or just someone with mental issues. The amount of tension and suspense in the flashback scenes and a very satisfying ending make this a can't-miss suspense thriller. This is a film I recommend to everyone if they're looking for something new and under the radar that they haven't seen before. It is readily available on Blu-ray and most pay streaming services now. Alright, for this next one, I'm not gonna lie, I was originally going to recommend Hatchet by Adam Green, which I feel is very underappreciated, but I decided to go with the feature which I feel is writer-director Adam Green's best work, and that movie is Frozen.
Oh, let's build a snowman, we can make our mark best friend.
No, not that Frozen. This movie came out about 3 years prior to the Disney smash hit, and unfortunately, it didn't have the same success, as it only screened in a total of 106 theaters nationwide, pulling in a worldwide gross of $2.7 million on a budget of just under $250,000. The film stars Emma Bell, Shawn Ashmore, and Kevin Zegers as the three friends stuck on the chairlift. Plot is a very simple one. Three friends are hitting the slopes at the end of the weekend and decide to try for one more run before the resort closes for the week in the dead of winter. They are stuck on a chairlift at the top of the mountain, too high to jump to safety, and must seek other means to escape with their lives. As the brutal cold and frostbite kicks in, they're running out of time before ultimately freezing to death. Frozen is dialogue heavy, but definitely brings the tension and suspense as we're watching them trying to figure out ways to escape their predicament. You know when you're watching a movie and you find yourself saying, well, I would just do this. This film takes all that into account, and you see the characters do just that with varying results. The movie was shot in the mountains of Utah with all practical means at 50 feet up. No CG, no green screen, no sound stages or sets. Everything was filmed on the ski lift at the Utah resort by Adam Green and DP Will Barrett. This proved to be loads of fun for Green as he is terrified of heights. The film is readily available for purchase on Blu-ray and can be streamed for free on Tubi, along with other streaming platforms. And just as a side, my wife wanted me to mention that Kevin Zegers is a really, really swell guy. There you go. Still refreshing. The final movie on my list I've discussed in the past, but I figured, what the fuck? When you usually hear about a beloved film, horror or otherwise, being lined up for a remake, you can't help but shudder in fear. Especially in this case, as the original is one of my favorite horror and vampire movies of all time. Yes, I'm talking about the 2011 remake of Fright Night, directed by Craig Gillespie. Or is it Gillespie? Is it Craig Gillespie? Yeah. And starring Anton Yelchin, Colin Farrell, David Tennant, and Toni Collette. That's a lot of big names for a horror remake. The story is similar to the original. It's basically The Boy Who Cried Wolf, but instead of a wolf, it's a vampire for a next-door neighbor. If you don't know the story, stop watching this video now and go watch the original Fright Night. Now. It's currently available for free on Tubi. Just go.
2 hours later.
Alright, you still there? Okay, I'm going to continue then. Instead of taking place in Iowa, the remake takes place in Las Vegas, which brings new plot points and twists to the already familiar story. Jerry Dandridge is a contractor who works at night and sleeps during the day. Perfect cover for a blood-sucking creature of the night. Also, instead of being a horror TV host, Peter Vincent is now the star of a magic show on the Vegas Strip, complete with lavish digs in the hotel penthouse, where he houses all of his monster-killing trinkets and a seemingly endless supply of Midori.
Looks like Pete, I'm hooked.
The character's traits are also tweaked a bit for this feature. Charlie is now the skeptic, while Evil Ed is the one who believes Jerry is a vampire. Amy is now the pursuer of Charlie sexually, as opposed to the Amy character in the original. Jerry is also straight predatorial in this version, using techniques to get to Charlie and company and finding loopholes around the typical vampire lore and rules, like the invitation into a house thing and whatnot. It's pretty fun. I originally saw this as a free preview screening with my wife, and we loved it so much that we paid again to see it upon release, and it did have some minor tweaking from the studio after the initial screenings. There is a lot of CG for the creature effects, which aren't the greatest, and the movie is more or less a beat-for-beat retelling of the original, but it's updated to account for the time period, characters, and the locale changes, which I think helps the movie a lot. I still think they did a damn good job taking this beloved horror classic and making it their own. Fright Night 2011 is available on the 2-disc Blu-ray, as well as most paid streaming services. And there you have my top 5 picks for underappreciated or underrated horror flicks. Have you seen any of the selections? Are there any movies that you feel need a little bit of TLC, some sweet lovin'? Put it in the comments. And thank you so much for watching. I'm gonna go dry my pants and we'll see you next time.